All right, the NFL free agency period has calmed down a little bit finally, and now it's time to take a look. What players got the biggest increase? Who are the biggest free agency winners here for 2019 fantasy football? Let's find out. What is going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Hey, today we're talking about NFL free agency winners here as far as fantasy football goes. There's a lot of guys whose draft stock improved. The possible uptick in production that we could see this year is absolutely huge. Now, I've got a few names, some from each position. I'm going to go through real quick. I pulled a lot of this information from FantasyFootballCalculator.com. It's one of our partnered sites. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. The link is in the description. Tons and tons of information here in the NFL offseason found there on this site. Now, without any more time being taken, let's get into some of these winners here for 2019. All right, first up, and it's no surprise, it's Baker Mayfield, quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He's going to be a very, 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 very popular name here come your fantasy football draft, and it's deservedly so. The guy has weapons for days. I mean, the newly acquired Odell Beckham Jr., then paired up with Jarvis Landry, the young talent of Antonio Callaway, David Njoku, a backfield of #GimmeChubb, and then we could possibly see Kareem Hunt in the second half of the season. This offense is absolutely redonkulous and could have put up some absolutely huge numbers. Now, since the acquisition of Odell Beckham, actually since March 4th is where I pulled this data from FantasyFootballCalculator.com. At that time, Baker Mayfield's ADP was in the 9th round. 9th round, pick 4 of the 9th round to be exact. Now, if you were to check it, he's jumped all the way into the back half of the 5th round. It could get to the point where he gets a little bit too expensive on draft day, especially if the likes of a Patrick Mahomes loses a Tyreek Hill due to suspension or whatever happens there. Baker Mayfield's price is getting dangerously expensive. But he wakes up feeling dangerous, and maybe we should too, because the guy could be an absolute stud. We need to see where his ADP finishes here once we get closer to draft season, because if it stays in those mid-rounds, he may be worth reaching for just a little bit. All right, next up, and this is not a typo. I actually meant to put Derek Carr in this video. Maybe one of the first times I've ever talked about Derek Carr. Why? He's really never given us much to talk about. But there's really a good opportunity for him this year. There's just so many question marks in Oakland. Do they believe in Derek Carr? Is he their quarterback of the future? Do him and Gruden coexist? He does have a lot better weapons this year than he did last year. I mean, now he's got Antonio Brown and Tyrell Williams. They still need a tight end. They still need a running back. But those are things that could be addressed here the remainder of the offseason and in the NFL draft. There is still plenty of moves that can be made to really improve the Oakland Raiders. They're heading the right direction. Last year, it was a big question mark what they were doing, but they're finally starting to build some pieces. Derek Carr, as of March 10th, his ADP was the back half of the 14th round. Now, he's already jumped 3 rounds higher up until the 11th round. Now, quarterback is an extremely deep position. Am I going to reach for Derek Carr because I really, really think that he's that great? Probably not. However, if they continue to build and give him more weapons, it's somebody who could be sneaky, especially in those 2 quarterback superflex leagues that you can get there in the later rounds. Moving on to running backs, first one on the list, Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings. Latavius Murray no longer in town. He's now in New Orleans, and there's really not a solid number 2 option there in Minnesota. Now, would the Vikings have let Latavius Murray walk, maybe not offered him more money if they didn't have the utmost confidence in Dalvin Cook? Now, I get it. Injuries have plagued him throughout his short NFL career here so far. But I really believe that when they let Latavius Murray walk, they knew that Dalvin Cook was going to be good to go. He started to show flashes at the end of last season. The burst, the acceleration, the pass catching out of the backfield, it was all involved there with the Vikings at the end of last season. And I also expect them to address the offensive line, at least through the draft here before the season gets going. I really like what Dalvin Cook has to offer. You may get him in mid to late second round depending on draft sizes, and he could definitely be somebody in that RB1 conversation here in 2019. Mark Ingram next on the list, and I don't know if there's many people out there that get a bigger bump than Mark Ingram. He went from, sharing duties in a high-powered New Orleans offense with Alvin Kamara to now pretty much being the guy in Baltimore. We already know Baltimore's going to run the ball a lot, and now it's Mark Ingram's backfield. He literally had a mid-5th round ADP just a couple weeks ago when he was with the Saints. Now he's going to be a 2nd round pick. He's one of my running backs to own here this season. He could easily top 1,000 yards and get close to double-digit touchdowns. It's the perfect opportunity, the perfect team, the perfect offense for a runner like Mark Ingram to excel. Love him in 2019. Wide receiver, DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers, somebody else who really gets a huge bump here in the offseason. Why? Hashtag Never Funchess is no longer in Carolina. Now, do we really care? Was Devin Funchess that great? No, he really isn't and really wasn't. But that does leave some open targets in this offense. DJ Moore will now become the #1 option in this offense. Still unanswered questions whether Greg Olsen comes back for sure. Curtis Samuel is somebody who will get more looks in this offense. Also, Christian McCaffrey's going to get his. Does Cam Newton come back? Is he healthy? Is his shoulder okay? Regardless, DJ Moore is going to be the #1 option in this offense, not named Christian McCaffrey. He's going to see a lot of targets, and is somebody who you can get at a great price on draft day. He's going to be one of these mid to late round selections that could possibly start the season on your bench and end up as a weekly flex play if they can continue to feed him the ball on a weekly basis. Donte Moncrief up next, and he gets a ridiculous bump. He basically goes from being undraftable to being somebody that I really want to target this year in fantasy football. I mean, he's going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We already know Antonio Brown is no longer there, and that frees up almost 170 targets. Now, the people out there that are a little crazy thinking that Juju's going to absorb those, think again. Juju already had almost 170 targets of his own. There's only so many more he can absorb from that offense. They have to go somewhere else. Now, yes, James Washington will be more involved in the offense, and a name on this list a little bit farther down is also going to be a little bit more involved, but Donte Moncrief all of a sudden becomes somebody that has huge touchdown upside, some big play ability upside, and he's going to be utilized in an offense that throws the ball almost more than anybody else in the NFL. Great landing spot, great situation. This may be one of the first times that Donte Moncrief actually gets a real opportunity because he's not the #1 guy. He's not going to be looked at as the #1 guy. He's more like option 3 or 4 with great talent. He could put up some huge numbers, and he's cheap on draft day. Talking about tight ends, the football kind now. First one on the list, Jared Cook. And this one kind of should probably have an asterisk next to it. Technically, he hasn't signed yet. He's agreed to a deal with the Saints, but technically it's not official yet. And now with the retirement of Gronk, do the Patriots lure Jared Cook away? Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he stays in New Orleans. It's a great opportunity for him in New Orleans. What are the other pass-catching options do they have from a receiver standpoint other than Michael Thomas? I mean, I know Traquan Smith is somebody who is a definite high upside play. I know Ted Ginn's still a part of that offense. Alvin Kamara is going to be in the backfield with Latavius Murray. But there's really no solid #2 pass-catching option as of right now. We know how Drew Brees used to utilize the tight end position back when they had Jimmy Graham back in the day. And we know that Jared Cook is a big, athletic, stretch-the-field type tight end capable of making big plays. This is a big play offense. I love Jared Cook in New Orleans. Now, if he goes to New England, just change the logo on the screen. He'll also be one of the biggest winners in free agency. He has value no matter where he goes to either destination. Last guy, Vance Mcdonald of the Pittsburgh Steelers also. I kind of already talked about him when we were talking about Donte Moncrief. There are those huge amount of targets available in this offense. Almost 170 vacated targets by Antonio Brown. They're going to have to go somewhere. Yes, they will be spread out between Vance McDonald, James Washington, Donte Moncrief. I don't expect Juju to get that big of a bump in targets. We already know that James Conner's in the backfield with Jalen Samuels. They have weapons. They have options. But now there's no Jesse James for him to compete with for touches or for targets. Vance McDonald is going to be the #1 tight end in Pittsburgh. An offense that really used to utilize the tight end a lot more back in the day. Do they get back to their old ways? Vance McDonald kind of sneaks into this fringe tight end 1 category because it's still one of the thinnest positions in all of fantasy football. On fantasy football draft day, if you're looking to wait on tight end to the later rounds, Vance McDonald could give you huge upside at a very cheap price. All right, those were a few of my free agency winners here so far for 2019. There were other guys, there are other possibilities out there. Trying to keep the videos short and sweet. I know you guys don't have a lot of time to just sit there and watch videos. Some of you may, but not all of you do. I'm trying to give you guys a good balance out there of shorter and longer videos. If you have other names that I did not talk about, throw them down below in the comment section. I would love to interact with you guys. We're one of the most interactive channels on YouTube. If you leave a comment, we're going to respond. And it's not just going to be a one-word answer like other channels. We're actually going to converse with you and really talk football. That's what we're trying to do, is build this community up. I'm looking forward to it. Real quick, though, before I get out of here, let's talk about our draft kit. I've announced it somewhat in the community tab here on YouTube and on Twitter, but it's coming. The pre-orders are going to be available, and they're going to be made available really soon. Make sure that bell notification is checked here on YouTube, or you follow us on Twitter, however it may be. You're going to want to know. We're going to be accepting pre-orders here. This draft guide will have everything that you possibly could need to win your fantasy football league this year. And it's going to be at a cheaper price than you're going to be able to get most places. Why? It's because we do this for the people. We do this for the community. I'm not going to put a high price tag on something and really outprice it from the community. I'm trying to help you guys out the best we can. It's coming. Pay attention for it. It's a league winner, and I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.